Get ready for a no BS approach to health and fitness. This is NBS Fitness Radio.
What is up? We are back on NBS Fitness Radio, and I am here with Chris Hoppe. Chris is a trainer here at NBS Fitness, also a longtime lifter himself, played college football, was a pretty competitive CrossFit athlete as well for a while. And today, our topic is strength. So, Chris, start us off and give us what's your definition of strength is.
I knew you were going to ask this right off. So I was doing a little research and I was trying to think of what I think strength is. And the best I could come up with was the body's ability to overcome resistance.
Ooh.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was on the money.
Is that the standard?
No, I came up with there's a couple others. I thought the quality or state of being physically strong, which I thought was kind of craptacular. But then the capacity of an object or substance to withstand great force or pressure. I like that one too, but I feel like the first one, the body's ability to overcome resistance.
Yeah.
That just kind of, it allows it to be many things.
Yes.
Because I think strength is great when we talk about like objective strength, like strongman, like your ability, a mass, an object or a person ability to move something else. Like that's awesome. But strength also has this other polar side, which to me is like mental strength or like just the ability to kind of grab the grit. You know, I think there's a wide spectrum of strength, which I think is what makes strength so cool.
Yeah, that definition is helpful because it not only applies to the physical aspect or the physical definition, but then also has carryovers to the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, social, all those types of things. So
yeah, and it actually brought up another question that I asked myself as I was kind of like just prepping, which was, are physical and mental, emotional strength synonymous? Meaning, if you possess one, do you then increase all? Which I felt like was cool because I was thinking about it like, man, if I'm working toward something simple like a 500-pound back squat, the work that's going to take is going to require a substantial amount of mental, emotional strength.
Yeah.
To get the physical strength.
Yeah.
You know, and the opposite is also true, meaning that if I have a strong, anything, working on strength is going to improve mental and physical and emotional strength, So I was like, are they all related? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I 1,000% think that they're all related.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're all on equal terms, meaning there are people I know who or have read about or whatever, I feel like, man, this person has an incredible level of like mental and emotional strength, but may not possess what we would probably consider a acceptable level of physical strength.
That's fair.
And there are also people I know who have know about who have a very high level of physical strength that then lack a significant level of emotional and mental strength.
I gotcha.
But I do think the awareness of that, and the carryover, you can then apply those to each. In other words, if you are, one of the best ways to kind of build mental, emotional strength is through doing physically difficult things.
Yep.
And doing physically difficult things and experiencing that you can use that and apply it and have it carry over to things outside of just the physical domain and actually develop those levels of strength as well.
No, I totally agree. And I think that is, for me, something I've grabbed onto early on just with sports and anything else was I needed something tangible that I could work on that also benefited other things because it wasn't natural for me to work on mental strength when I was younger, when I was a kid, and it wasn't, and it was something I was lacking for sure. And for me, the initial piece was karate, and karate allowed me, it really was the first experience when I was like 8 years old to show me discipline. And the discipline that I had with the physical practice all of a sudden led to I was confident in
Yeah.
school now. And then I started to play sports, and then it kind of transferred to that. And it was like, oh, I worked really hard at practice today. And then I go home and it would be like, all right, I can work really hard at homework now.
Yeah.
And it kind of conveyed to that. And then it was like, oh, like I can do this stuff that I'm doing on the football field, in the weight room, and apply it to work, relationships, something like that. I'm working on something in my marriage. Man, if I'm not working on my marriage as hard as I am my strength program, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, if I can do that on both aspects, if I'm struggling with something emotionally, I can take it to the gym and figure it out there and take those lessons and apply them back to what I'm working on at home with all the relationships and relationship with anything generally in my life. I think that's why I've just stayed in love with the aspect of physical training for the reason you just outlined.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have like super similar stories, and in those stories is having found the weight room at or found some type of physical challenge at right in a key point of development, right in those kind of pubescent teenage years, and like had that really have an impact on us. And then carry that on kind of throughout our lives. And which makes me kind of think back to like Angie and I were talking about this of the effect of childhood obesity. And I was like, man, like the problem is like if you're obese as a teenager or as a kid, like you are set up for failure the rest of your life. It's not that it can't be overcome. It just is way harder for a million reasons if you become obese at that age versus like at 30, 40 or whatnot.
I totally agree. You're essentially, you don't know what's possible. And I think as a kid and as somebody that's developing, especially in those pubescent years and adolescence, I needed to know that struggle is normal. You can get through it.
Yeah.
And with the people around you are going to help you. Yeah. And that was what was so important about team was understanding that, hey, I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
And I had my coaches, my parents, I had that team of, when coaches and parents weren't around, I had my peers. Yeah. And if I hadn't been in that situation, I couldn't imagine starting my adult life and then starting that journey. So I feel that, I have such great respect for human beings that come into the fitness realm later in life and are like, hey, I'm going to make a change and actually do it, because they're not just taking it from zero and moving the needle forward. They have to get the needle back to zero first. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like I had a jump start because I had experienced that at a young age, but I mean, I can't even fathom that as being an adult going into this journey, having to move the needle to zero to start and then move forward. I mean, that's just, it's such a feat,
Yeah. During your teenage years is when you're really kind of like developing your identity as an individual. So if you kind of look at like human psychological development, you like kind of, you're developing your individual identity and kind of your role in society as well.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, man, I can see how that was so solidified through being in the gym, through being on sports teams, through doing physically challenging things, getting through them, and having that kind of development of strength, and how it just kind of carried over through each other level of my life.
Oh yeah. And I think an element of that too is it taught me how to fail.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's overlooked by so many is as you grow up as a human being, if you've never learned that failure is a part of success, we don't live there, but I got to where I'm at because I failed and I learned from other people around me to pick me up and walk forward and try new things and go in that direction. If I didn't learn that by that, man, that's brutal,
Yeah. The statement I've always made is like, you don't learn anything from a lift you make.
Exactly.
Just learn you can do it.
100%.
Cool. But you haven't in the lift that you make. There's usually not any catastrophic technique breakdowns, not any catastrophic mental breakdowns. There's no learning points from that. So if you're always having success, then you're never pushing the limits to where you should be, and experiencing failure so that you then can experience growth and development from that failure. Yeah. And, being in just like funny stories of failure. I remember, 2 times failing on bench press. And one time I was in my at our house. We had like a little like Walmart, gym.
Yeah.
And I was benching, and then it just got stuck like midway through, and I ended up bringing it back onto my chin. I was like trying to scream "mom" to come help me like get it off of my chin. So luckily that for whatever reason I hadn't like screwed the collars on, because you had like the standard bars, and just ding on either side.
Yeah.
And then my mom coming up, and she's like, "Oh my God, what happened?" Because she hears
yeah.
And then another time I was at a commercial gym and was benching and got stuck, and like got it stuck on my chest, and there was a female weight room attendant, and I was like, "Hey, can you help me?" And so it's kind of funny, like when I tell those stories to people, people kind of think like you've been doing this for 2.5 decades, like you've always been strong. And I was like, no, I've definitely had to get girls to pick the bar up off my chest before.
Oh, for sure. No, our stories yet again are way too familiar. I've had the same mom freak out basement lifting moment. I was at bench pressing, stuck, yelling for mom. And, those are the times when those are cemented in. I'll never forget those times when I'm learning what strength is. And to your point, I've learned so much more for things that I haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
Because then I grow, then I learn about adversity and things like that. And I'm almost chasing that line of what I can and can't do in everything, because I know that just on the other side of that back squat that I didn't get, or that front squat, is a whole lot that I don't even know.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic happens. It's on the other side of that failure. And that's where I get to play in the weight room. And then that confidence takes into everything else. And I'm like, ooh, this relationship, I'm right on the edge of something great.
Yeah.
I need to keep working at it. I'm so close, and it's like, it's priceless to me, which I think is really the at the core of being strong.
I also think there's a degree of what you find out is that the benefit and the beauty is in the pursuit, not necessarily the end destination, because once you hit that thing that you've been chasing, it instantly becomes like the door is now open to the new possibilities.
Yeah.
So the first time you hit 225 on a bench press, you're like, oh my gosh, I did 2 plates.
Yeah.
You go, I think I could do 245. And then you start pursuing that. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to do 315. And you just can continue to kind of pursue that. And obviously there's at some point it cannot continue to increase, but it's, you find pleasure and growth in pursuing it, getting there, failing along the way, having that moment you're like, yes, I finally did this daggone thing. I've been trying to do this forever.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, that was such a great feeling of accomplishment and growth. I want some more of it.
Yeah.
Now what's that next thing I'm going to go try to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's if you're not used to that way of being or life or weight room experience or anything, you kind of have this, it seems kind of crazy. Like they're kind of like, I want to lose 10 pounds and then I'll just be happy. And you're like, that's not the way this works. This isn't a 9-week program and then cruise control.
Yeah.
This is the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
I'll never not do this.
Yeah.
Because it's become who I am and what I do. And while I may not be able to hit the same weights all the time, I'll always be pursuing some type of growth.
Oh yeah.
Forever.
It's multidimensional.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to your point, that's the door that gets cracked open when you start training.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly one of the biggest barriers for a lot of people is they think it's like, oh, I got to come in and do the traditional weight training thing. And it's not that. And that's why it's such a huge barrier for so many people is they think it's just this thing. And it's this segmented part of their life. It's something that's separate. Like I'm going to go to the gym and train there.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a miss when people do that. Like, oh man, I'm just going to go do my time. I'm going to, get in there and do, just put in my time on the treadmill and then call it a day. And it's like, man, like you're missing out on so many things that can be. It's an hour of practice, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual practice that you get to have in there. And if you become aware of that as you're going through it, then it's limitless,
That's also, I think, why so many people are so wanting to discard it.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll say, oh, my schedule's kind of crazy. I'm just gonna have to stop training for a little, or I had a different bill, or I gotta save some money, or da 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 da. And I'm like, I will sell my truck, I will sell my house, I will take on as many side projects as I absolutely need. I'll cancel my cable. I'll eat tuna fish and rice cakes. I will do whatever necessary to maintain this physical pursuit, because I know it is a foundation for everything else that I'm going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore it's worth sacrificing everything.
Absolutely.
Everything material.
Yeah. No,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Because without it, all that stuff goes away.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
And that's what I've found. And I love how you used foundation. And I think touching on another thing you said, which was the falling in love with the journey.
Yeah.
And it is falling in love with that process of it, and understanding that it is a fundamental core of who we've become as human beings. And that is why it's so easy for people to say, that's it. Cause they don't understand that it is deeper. Strength is, like we said earlier, like what is the kind of Webster's definition, the quality or state of being physically strong. Like, I want to be strong. Like, okay, that's cool. Yeah. Like, great. There's a million people that are strong, but when you come in and you can really take it on that understanding of being a journey, then it becomes something that you can't sacrifice. Yeah. It's become something that's a part of your being, and it's just the way you interact with the world. Yeah. And that the way the ferocity that you attack, your training session with is also what you attack everything else with. Yeah. And that's power. That's cool.
Yeah. When we did our ruck the other day, I was talking to Jennifer, and she said like something like, why you do these crazy things, or something like that. I mean, she knows, but she was like trying to just like ask me the question. And I was like thinking about it, and I said, I don't want to be the type of man who's incapable or unwilling to do hard things.
Yeah.
And that would be completely unacceptable to me. So like, by definition, for me to succeed in life, it has nothing to do with the amount of money in my checkbook. It has nothing to do with the amount of things that I have. It is my ability to go through life with the proper framework, mindset, emotion, and physical ability, because I know that hard things aren't something that I get to choose. Hard things are going to happen whether I choose them or not. Yeah. So I have to be willing to face them, and be willing to go through them. And again, that's kind of where the physical aspect of it is a foundation that I can never give up. So it's not something I can ever trade in for anything. Everything is worth trading in for that. Sure. And I think that's where, if you haven't gotten to that point yet, you don't understand. Yeah. And you can't like I was like, it sounds crazy to you if you're like, no, I'd sell my house. Like I'd put my entire family in a bedroom apartment if it meant that we as a family were going to live physically fit lives, or are necessary to afford to live physically fit lives. Yeah. I don't give a shit about my house. At some point, I'm going to face something hard, and a big house isn't going to help me get through that. No,
not in the slightest. Yeah. And I think too, like the way I think about it is the reason that I love doing these hard things is my physical body is really, and my mental aspect of it, even more so, is one of the only things I can control. Yeah, it's the only thing I have control over is my body and my mind. And at some point, my body might go, and it's just going to be my mind. Yeah, and if I don't take advantage of that, for me as a human being, I want to be able to be who I am at any point, anywhere in society and in life, no matter where I'm at, no matter what size house I'm in, no matter what car I'm in, no matter what relationship I'm in, no matter where I'm at, I'm the same human being. Yeah. I live by the same values. I do the same things at the same time. And that's what those hard things allow me to do, is to kind of sharpen the spear. Yeah. It's like, man, like this may not be around all the time, and I'm going to hit stuff that's going to knock me on my ass. Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I mean, look at the coronavirus, the last 2 years. Nobody could have predicted that this was going to happen, but the people that are moving through it the best are people that have practiced hard things, because this is just another hard thing. It's the same person. It's Tuesday. Is it tragic? Yeah, it is. But tragedies happen all the time. Yeah. And if I'm not polishing that stone, sharpening that spear, working on that constantly, those things are going to tag me and set me back, versus these things, they tag me, they still hit me, they hit me hard, and it's emotional and it sucks. But I have this buffer where I don't fall back below zero.
Yeah.
I just get knocked back a little bit on my heels. But I have the community around me. I have the strength foundation in every aspect of my life to continue to march forward and learn and grow from that, just like I would any other piece of my training.
Yeah.
So it's not a question for me of like why I do these hard things. For me, it's more of a question looking out of, you should do these hard things with me.
Yeah.
And I want to bring you along.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing these hard things to get ahead of people.
Yeah.
I'm doing these hard things to turn around and reach my hand down and bring you up with me.
Yeah.
That's what I want, more people doing this with me, because when push comes to shove and the shit hits the fan, I want an army of people that are, marching in the same direction as I am, where I can lean on, because they're going to be leaning on me too.
Yeah, 1,000%. You brought up a good point about focusing on what you have control over. Yeah. And I think there's a bit of culturally we've kind of elevated victimhood, and we just tend to kind of focus and on all the things outside of our control, and it just takes so much of your brain space, so much of your energy and your resources. When in reality, it's like you can do nothing about that.
Very little.
And so one of the things about getting in the gym or doing the physically hard things is you recognize, like, I can control this. And so when that thing does happen, my resources aren't going to be drained from focusing on those things outside of my control. I recognize, like, oh, this is not good. Like with the coronavirus, like you said, I recognize, well, this is bad.
Yeah.
And the government's shutting my business down. This is bad. I recognize all that, but I can either spend my resources on something I have no control over, which is what the government mandates.
Yep.
Or I can spend my resources on focusing on what is in my control. And I think that's a big benefit of like doing these things, is you recognize, oh, I need to stay within my circle of control and just spend my energy there.
Yep.
And then I can help this other person who's like freaking out. And they're like, why aren't you freaking out? It's like, that's outside my control.
Yep.
Why don't you come do this thing with me? And you'll realize the power of focusing on things within your control.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's super powerful for other people.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into a little bit more objective stuff. All right. So let's talk about like what standards of strength are.
Okay. All right. Lead the way. Lead. I want to follow you here. I want to see where you're going with it.
So, there's we kind of have like the 10 basic movements, right?
Yep.
So hinge, squat, horizontal pull, horizontal press, vertical press, single leg, run, jump, throw, carry.
Yep.
Cool. And I think within each one, there's a kind of like foundational human movements, right?
Yep.
And I think within each of those, I like to give people like we said, an objective kind of goal to shoot for.
Sure.
For two reasons. One, it's measurable. We can see where you are and if you're making progress. And two, it sets a standard to shoot for that keeps you from spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
I think there's a big issue with the promotion of exercise versus training. And the way I define that is this. Things within your capacities is just activity. So walking is well within my capacity. I like walking a mile.
Sure.
Well within our capacity, right?
Yep.
So that is not exercise at all.
No.
And it's not exercise for most people. If walking is exercise for you, you are very out of shape. And I'm glad you're doing this, but this is not I'm glad you're walking, but this is the starting point, not an end point, right?
Yeah.
And so exercise are things within your or that push the limits of your capacities, and then training is planned and organized and purposeful exercise designed to improve specific capacities to the specific degrees over specific time frames, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people exercise and go, I'm fit or I'm healthy. And to which my point would be like, you are exercising, and there are probably certain capacities that are at an appropriate level, but all the other ones are not.
Yeah.
And there was I think this has been kind of a year and a half of like people throwing around a lot of definitions of health.
Yeah.
And people are like, they were healthy. I'm like, they weren't healthy.
Yeah.
Just because they weren't at the extreme ends of a particular marker of ill health does not mean that they were healthy. And strength is a capacity. And then there's going to be levels of strength that are appropriate in which you could say, I am fit. Right. So to give an example, if we use the hinge, for example, I would say that any grown male under the age of 60 should be able to deadlift at minimum their body weight, probably 1.5 times their body weight, and ideally double their body weight.
I can agree with that.
Above 60, that probably falls down a little bit.
Sure.
To 1.5, back to 1, maybe at 70 plus. If you can deadlift your body weight, you're doing good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Body
weight minimum.
Yeah. Body weight minimum.
Yeah. Even at
forever.
Forever.
You should never
you should be able to. Yeah. I mean, within reason. I mean, barring significant physical, things like that.
Yeah.
You should have the ability to apply force to be able to pull your body weight off the ground. No question. Yeah.
And like I could put in a post the other day that like anyone at any age beyond 5 should be able to run a mile.
Yeah.
And that was kind of going back to like the actual standards of fitness, and people are like, I walk every day. Like, right, that's great. It's still
raise the bar.
Yeah. Can you run a mile? No. Then you're not at an acceptable level of fitness. You have to go up. But I'm 90 years old. I understand.
Yeah.
You were born with the ability to run.
Yep.
You should die with the ability to run.
For sure.
And a mile is a really easy kind of marker that's not pushing these crazy limits. You can run a 12-minute mile and still run.
Sure. Yeah. It's totally achievable. Yeah.
So then that would be one objective standard.
I got you.
Of a body weight to 2 times body weight deadlift. Now going beyond 2 times body weight deadlift, that's can be difficult and usually requires some sacrifice in other levels.
Sport specific. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I think when I'm thinking about like objective measures of strength, I think about the other side as far as pushing. Like I think the push up is a significant measure. I mean, from like we're talking about, if we talk at the end of the spectrum, end of life, regardless of age, being able to push yourself off the floor, getting up off the ground, which actually ties into kind of 2 movements, which would be the squat and the push up. The push up to get into the squat and the squat to be able to stand up. I think those being able to measure those in a way which would be more of a volume piece, and a range of motion. I think it's the other thing that strength really helps too, is the range of motion about a joint. Is being able to do a back squat enables me to get up off my bed, get up off the toilet, things like that when I'm older. And people don't really think about that. They're like, I don't need, why am I squatting? It's like, man, like, why are you not? This is the question.
Yeah. Let's see what happens when you can't squat.
It gets real.
You're stuck a lot of places.
Right? A lot of places.
You're going to be stuck a lot.
For sure.
Yeah, I think those the push up and the squat, like you said, very much represent your ability to move your body. Yeah. And the deadlift's a great way of kind of is a very basic pick something up off the ground.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that pick something up off the ground, a good standard is like a more of a single rep heavy kind of, how you gotta be able to pick this thing up.
One
versus the squat and the push up would be more repetitive volume. Can you do this over and over and over again?
I totally agree.
And almost, so it would be the ability to do it through the full range of motion.
Yeah.
And then pain free.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree.
Then what would you say would be a good standard for volume between those? And now I'll throw out one for myself and you can see what you think.
Yeah.
I've always kind of said that that a good standard for push-ups would be whatever the Army Physical Fitness Challenge was.
Sure.
Because it goes out over like all the way up to like 80 years old.
Yeah.
And basically it's like, do you have this basic standard of fitness to be able to defend the rights that you are granted to this country?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, barring any type of severe physical disformity or injury or whatever.
Yeah.
This should be expected of anybody at any age, and we can measure it. And so the old Army PT test was like, it was like 42 push-ups.
It sounds right. Yeah.
Up to like maybe 30 years old, and it kind of like
starts to decrease
a little bit, but still it was like 20 something for like 60 plus year olds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's I'll actually look it up, but now it's it's just a standard across the board for combat. So there's a combat readiness test.
Yeah, test. Yeah. And I think like volume wise, I would match the air squat with it.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I mean, you should be able to do, 40, 50 easy up to 30, 40 years old, and in a certain time domain. I think that pulls in a level of not only just strength, but fitness required is like, hey, can I stand up, sit down, 40, 50 times in a row with a good range of motion? That I think is a huge cursor for strength, moving forward, without question.
So the Army readiness test for what they call heavy jobs, which would be physically fit jobs.
Yeah.
The minimum requirement is 30 push-ups, hand release push-ups.
Hand release.
So down, hands up.
At least hands off the ground, press up.
It just seems like completely reasonable.
100%. No question.
And something I would say that, again, anyone should be able to do probably to at least 60, maybe definitely some people could do it beyond 60, 80. 20 is probably a good number to shoot for. But,
for sure.
Those are,
those are reasonable. But and that's a reasonable day in the life of a human being is being able to stand up and sit down 20 times.
Yeah.
With your own body weight, because who knows what you got going on? You may be holding something.
Yeah.
You may be standing up with something, moving from a deadlift into a squat, into a clean, something like that. Like there's a million applications in that day-to-day life. But I would say like standard wise, the push-up and the squat matching the readiness test would be a phenomenal number.
Yeah.
Another one I'm thinking about too, especially thinking about the readiness test is ability to carry.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge one. And we've talked about it before, being the only what mammal that has the ability to carry
loads
for a significant long distance. I think that's our responsibility to keep that up, and is why we have thrived in our evolution is due to part of that. And I think the aspect of not only rucking, but like a simple farmer's carry or even a body drag, a dead weight moving something is extremely critical. And as far as a standard, where would you drift with a standard?
I don't know. That's a hard one.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm trying to think, like, you should probably be able to body drag like 150 to 200 pound person.
Yeah.
50 to 100 yards.
I would say. Yeah. I mean, and that's
enough distance to get them ideally out of any like danger.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. That's hard. That is not easy. Yeah. That is something that takes a lot of specific training to do, but again, kind of works on the range of motion, the pull of the deadlift, all the same stuff, applies to that, which I think is critical, which makes that test of strength so vital, is being able to do something like that,
Yeah. I think I'm trying to think for a carry. Probably close to like either probably same thing, like your body weight divided between each hand for 50 to 100 yards without dropping it.
Ooh.
Then maybe pushing it a little bit. Maybe it's
that's
like
a high standard.
Half of your body weight.
A little heavy right now, David. That's a little rough. Yeah, I would say like I would say for a general standard, I would say half.
Like half
50% of your body weight split up, and being able to carry that for 50 to 100 yards.
Yeah, because that's like 55 pounds, I think, for me.
Which
that seems
for like a football field.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
that's a long carry.
That's a long carry, And I would say maybe like if we were doing a drag, it would be more closer to body weight, something like that.
Yeah, you should probably be able to drag your own body weight, because that would be if you're a smaller person,
yeah,
you're not gonna be able to drag.
We're drifting into a little more of the relative strength here, which
Yeah.
is great, unless you got like the superhuman mom strength, which is different, which we all know.
Yeah.
But like I absolutely think like the relative strength, being able to drag your own body weight and being able to carry at least half of your body weight in your hands moving for 100 yards is vital.
Yeah. And like a couple of years ago, Nashville got hit by like a pretty gnarly tornado.
Yeah, I remember.
And like I used a scenario was like, imagine your neighborhood gets taken out by a tornado. And through that, you need to be able to pick up a 300-pound wall to save your wife or to save your kids, to get them out of a burning building.
For sure.
To be able to get to their leg, which has a arterial puncture that you have to be able to stop. And somewhere along that period, you have to be able to take that person 100 yards down the street to get them to the EMT, because the ambulance can't get through your street because there's a bunch of trees in the way.
Yeah.
This is not asking someone to perform superhuman abilities. This is asking someone to perform standard human abilities in order to save their loved ones, their neighbors, and to be an asset to society.
Sure.
And one of the reasons, or one thing I'm constantly telling people is like, yes, there's a lot of individual benefit to doing physical fitness, and there's even a lot of like small social circle benefits, good for your family.
Yeah.
But then you become an asset to society and not a liability.
Yeah.
And we need more assets because we are in balance with liabilities currently. We have an imbalance between those humans from a health and fitness perspective who are liabilities to those around us. In other words, if you're my neighbor and I get stuck in a wall, I'm confident Chris is going to come pick that wall up and be able to save me.
Yeah.
But if I've got a arterial puncture in my leg and there's a wall stuck on me and I'm in some crazy position where I can't lift it off myself, and my neighbor is not emotionally able to handle this crazy situation, is not physically able to then save me, then I die and my kids grow up without a dad.
Yeah.
Which would have been completely preventable had we just as a society said, hey, we're going to hold ourselves to the standards.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to raise the bar.
So I think that's kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, but like, why should we be physically fit? Why should we have some standards here in place?
Yeah.
This is why.
Yeah.
Because that could totally happen to you.
Yeah.
Ideally, it won't.
Sure.
But it's a hell of a lot better to be prepared for that to happen and it not happen than the opposite, right?
Oh, yeah. And I think that goes back to what we were just talking about with the coronavirus. Like, nobody expected any of that.
No.
In a million years. This will never happen to us, Even when it was starting, like, oh, it'll never come to the United States.
Right.
It does, and it did, and these things happen. And if you look at history, the chances of these catastrophic events happening is more and more frequent. It's going to happen again and again. And it's that freak accident that you can't, again, to what we talked about, where you can control. We can't control these things. Any one of these things could happen at any point in time. Are you prepared?
But you can't prepare for it.
Exactly. Are you prepared to do what's necessary? Kind of that. And I think that's where that general physical preparedness comes in, is the unknown and the unknowable. I don't know what's going to happen when I walk out that door. I don't know what's going to happen when I get home, when I'm not at home. I can't predict any of those things, but all I can do is be as prepared as possible to step up against anything that's going to come my way, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of it, and that to me is worth training for. I want to train every moment of every day for that moment.
Yeah.
That's the luck doesn't favor, I forget the saying, but the luck favors the prepared is inevitably what it says, something like that.
Yeah.
And I truly feel for that, and it's a failure to prepare that inevitably takes us out, you know.
I just read the book Anti-Fragile. Have you read it?
I don't think so.
It's really good. It's about, because his original book was Black Swan, and like Black Swan
That's
are
the one
like
I've
once
heard
in a
of,
lifetime events. Coronavirus was one. The financial collapse of 2008 was one. He basically predicted it. He was a financial he's not a financial analyst, but he was in the financial realm.
Yeah.
But he talks about basically the difference between being fragile or anti-fragile and across like all these different realms, financially, physically, and mentally, socially, all this stuff. And it's basically, he's saying like, we as humans are kind of go like, I just never expected that to happen. And it's like, why?
Yeah, it's your fault.
Have you looked back through history?
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of these like crazy. Now you may not have expected that exact thing to happen, but you should expect that at some point something unexpected is going to happen.
Yeah, that is the only thing that we know for certain is that is going to happen. Yeah, we don't know what it is, but it's going to happen.
Yeah, at some point it's going to happen to you. So be ready.
Yeah, be ready. It's your choice.
All right. What about pulling, like vertical pulling?
Yeah, I was looking up random feats of strength last night, and I think some guy got, I think it was 14 pull-ups with a 100-pound pack. Gosh. Is the Guinness record, which is just mind-blowing. But I think like, I don't know, as far as, I think that's a volume number, which isn't terribly high. I would say, maybe like a five strict pull-ups, would be a good measure of, you should be able to pull your body weight up 5 times, onto an object, maybe, pull yourself up, so a strict pull-up would transfer to so many of those things and kind of pairs with the push-up. So I'd say 5, that may be low, but, given I feel like I'm a bigger guy. It took me a long time to get pull-ups. So I'm like 5's a lot, so I'm like, all right, 5 feels like a lot, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you're going to kind of have like a range of standards, it would be like
a single pull-up for sure.
At any age, of any sex, of any size, you should be able to do one pull-up. If you can't do that, then it becomes like, what's the cause? Is it I do not have enough vertical pulling strength, or is that my weight to strength high. Ratio is off? My weight is too high.
Yeah.
And I need to get my weight down so I can be able to do that. And that's kind of like the function of it. But yeah, at any age, you should be able to do a pull-up. Go from a dead hang, chin over the bar.
Yeah.
Ideally, you would be able to do volume of that.
Yep.
Again, as far as that standard's gonna be, if you're 150 versus 250, those are different.
I think it's like a percent. It's definitely kind of like we talked about with the drag. I think it's gonna have to matter as far as like maybe a percentage of body weight equals the number. I think there's a whole range of like you said that we would have to kind of take into account, but definitely the one, and then more volume for sure. Again, like we don't want to.
The younger you are, the lighter you are.
100%.
The more you should be able to do.
Yeah, without question. But again, I like the any age, a pull up. I love that. Yeah. And I think one thing too that I think a lot of people don't think about when they think about strength is joints, and it's such a huge piece of the puzzle that you lose when you stop moving through a full range of motion.
Yeah.
So a full pull up, a full push up, a full squat. I know it's more popular in the East, but in like assisted living or retirement homes, as people get older, they take away the bed frames and they put them on the floor. So they're required to start and end the day in the squat to be able to get out of there. So they just spend more time there.
Yeah, they're like,
and
you need to be able to get up off the floor. So we're gonna make sure you get up and down on the floor
and
every day.
They started early, where
it's
like you started at like 50, 60 years old, and it's like, okay, like you build the strength to be able to do that if you're not already there, hopefully, and then that way when it does happen, like, okay, I've been doing these squats, getting up and down at least twice every day for the past 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay, I can get up off the ground. That's huge,
Yeah.
But that full range of motion, the joint health for something like that is critical. And I think that carries over even into the pull-up.
1,000%. Yeah, I think maybe people sometimes aren't aware that the body basically just adapts to whatever stimulus you're placing upon it. So if you're not going through full ranges of motion, your body will just adapt to be in the ranges of motion that you're going through.
Yeah.
And your body's not going to, and the thing is, for so many people, they'll be like, I'm inflexible. But a lot of times we could passively take you through the full range of motion.
That's what's bizarre. Yeah.
You have the joint range of motion.
Yep.
What actually is occurring is you do not have the stability. You do not have the joint strength.
Yep.
To stabilize that joint through the full range of motion. So your body just shuts it off and goes, nope, we're not going to let you do this.
Yeah.
You're flexible enough.
Yeah.
You're just weak.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like you don't have strength in those ranges of motion. Yeah. How do we get that?
Yeah. And I
gotta go through them.
And I think that's what most people don't get either is they're like, oh, I want to be more flexible. And they don't realize how much a component of being flexible is strength.
Yeah.
Strength is flexibility. The body will release more range when it's a safe range. And if it can't, and it's all about symmetry and balance. And if it doesn't have balance about that joint, it's going to shut it down until it can go around that joint successfully. You know, its job is to keep you functioning and being able to feed yourself and use the restroom. Like that's 100% its job. Yeah. And if it's not balanced out, that flexibility is not going to be there, you know? So to your point, if we don't surround ourselves and train constantly in full ranges of motion, the majority of the time, your body's going to default to that. Okay, well, we can shorten the hip flexor. We can shorten the hamstring. We can shorten this. We can shorten that. We can curve the posture over because it's trying to just save energy. Yeah. It's all it's trying to do. It's like, oh, cool. You're going to give me this chair. I'm going to shorten your hip flexor. Yeah. Awesome. You know, it's going to do that, you know, so it's so important to take it through that full range and then to expand that range to increase that flexibility.
I think my wife's going to be really disappointed when like she comes home, the bed frame's gone. And it's just a mattress and a box spring on that.
I'm really sorry for what I've done. I know we're supposed to be on the same team here, but
like, stop hanging out with Chris Hoppe.
It's good. Dee feels the same way when I get dragged off and she's like, what are you going to do with David? Like, don't worry about it. I'll see you in a while. I'll see you about 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, it's one of those.
When I read Comfort Crisis, I was like, we don't need AC. We got to start turning this thing up. She's like,
Jed said like she caught it. And it was like 80 upstairs and the boys couldn't sleep. And I was like, that's priceless. That's priceless.
But I was like, I turned it up 1 degree every 3 days. They've adapted.
They've adapted. Okay. They're fine. It's like living in the Serengeti.
But I was like, stop putting them in the daggum like wool
clothes,
the wool pajamas. Like let them sleep up there naked. They'd be all right.
It's amazing when you start like exploring that. And you really start to see the reason we do a lot of the things we do is because the other things that we do for no reason. You kind of follow it back and you're like, you trace the step. You're like, well, if it wasn't like 12 degrees, I wouldn't need, and you know, if I didn't sleep with it that cold, I wouldn't need that many clothes and that blanket and this and that. And you're like, whoa, man, like I've created this like comfort nest. Like no wonder it's essential, you know, that I do all of these things. And it's reality. It's like, hey, you should probably just turn the thermostat up a little bit. You'll be all right. You know,
turn thermostats up, take your clothes off. Yep. Sleep underneath the fan.
You'll be good. You'll make it. We'll be all right.
I feel like the fan is acceptable because ideally you would have some breeze,
cross breeze, airflow
at night.
Yeah, I can agree. I can concede and put the fan in the acceptable range. This is also coming from a guy who sleeps in a very comfortable, like 60-degree bed. Like I have a chili pad that keeps it cold. You know, I'm that guy. So take it for what it's worth.
I may need that.
Yeah. Oh, it's nice. Nice.
So we were funny thing about like talking about strengthening and range of motion, it was like in powerlifting, a lot of our goals were to shorten the range of motion as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess that's kind of a talk about like the trade-off between like maximizing strength at the cost of what?
Sure.
And so a lot of our setups were designed to create maximum stability, shortest ranges of motion, so you can move maximum weight. What was the trade-off of that? Is your body adapted to that and you got really freaking inflexible.
Sure.
And funny thing was like when I was powerlifting, I tore my labrum and I tore my rotator cuff, and then I had like constant knee pain. And I would be like, I go to the doctor and I'm like, man, can y'all like x-ray this thing or MRI? Tell me what's going on with my freaking knee. Everything looks fine. You know, I get tissue work done on it, And then literally I just stopped squatting crazy heavy all the time, and then just mobilize my ankles and my knee joint and like stretch out my hip flexors. I'm like, oh, now I don't have any knee pain.
It's like, oh,
it's just like I don't have knee problems.
No.
I just had mobility problem.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an imbalance there. Your body, but a lot of people don't we don't think about pain as a red flag. Like it's just the pain is the body's way of communicating with you of like, hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Not something's wrong with the knee necessarily. Now, there's situations where it is 100% sure. This is not an absolutist statement.
Yeah.
It's more of, man, there's something wrong with stuff around the knee. The joint is usually fine. It's something upstream or downstream that's pulling the joint out of whack to whereas it can't operate. And your body's trying to let you know that. It's not saying don't move, but that's everybody's first instinct is, oh, I feel pain. Don't do anything.
Yeah.
No, that's your body saying you got to do something different. Like we got to change this thing, man. You know, and whatever that may be, that's where training comes in. Is like, oh, maybe more of this, less of this. Change this, do that. You know, that's what's cool about it.
Yeah, I think that's like, going back, what would I have done differently during my powerlifting career? Every single thing that we did was only purpose was to build strength, but there wasn't a whole lot done to like focus on longevity in the sport.
Sure.
And I think that's why so many, I mean, I think the average is like, you're probably going to be a competitive lifter for like 3 to 5 years. And the most likely scenario is you'll just quit exercising totally after that.
Yeah.
Is what I've seen.
Sure. Yeah. Which is tragic.
Which is super tragic.
Yeah.
Right.
Because these guys are, you know, I mean, yeah, it's really sports specific and they may have decreased range of motion, but I mean, they're still tremendous athletes. And to go from that, I mean, that specialized in that, you know, ability to produce that much force and overcome that much resistance. I mean, that's a shame to not be able to round that off a bit and say, hey, can we just increase some range of motion now? You still get to practice your sport, you know, things like that. Like,
well, if you're like, I love the sport and just quite frankly, I don't want to do anything other than this. Cool. But should probably spend some time figuring out how we're going to do this sport for 10, 20, 30 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
Versus going like, I want to be as strong as I possibly can in the shortest period of time. It's like, there's some sacrifices that come big time with that.
Yeah.
And that's like going back, I'm like, it probably would have been better to balance it out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I can totally agree with that. Yeah.
A good bit more than what I did.
A good bit more balance would have done a long way.
All right. Any other strength standards that you can think of?
Man, the only thing that comes to my mind for some reason is that stupid plank thing you brought up the other day. The guy did like a 9-hour plank or something, which is absolutely insane. But I'm trying to think because we got
the push-up kind of
push.
I was
going to say that gets that. We got a horizontal push. We
kind of lost the vertical or the horizontal pull and the vertical press.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you feel like the horizontal would be different than the vertical pull?
No,
like on a
if
strength,
you can do a pull up, you're going to have plenty
you're
of
going to be able to horizontal press. Yeah, I agree. And like even I think overhead, I think is a big one that we need to. Well, maybe not. I think it could be accomplished because I was thinking about range of motion. Overhead is vital, but with the pull up, you're kind of hitting the same deal. If you can hit that pull up, it kind of hits several range of motion and strength pieces.
Yeah, if you can maintain your standard of pushing, like push ups. You're probably going to
paired with the pull up. You're going to be able to knock both of those.
You're going to have
vertical
the range of motion and whatever strength necessary to do overhead pressing.
I would agree.
Though you should still train overhead pressing.
Oh, I think
it may not be necessary to set a specific standard for that.
I would agree. I think we could hit that with multiple of the other ones.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Lower body. We got pull. We got squats. Yeah, we got drag, carry. I don't know. That seems
I feel like those are kind of like, those are all the.
So like, let's list them out. Like if we could do what do we say? The Army standard of 10 or of push-ups, 30 and match that with squats.
30,
those two together.
Bodyweight squats.
30 squats, 30 push-ups, be able to carry half your body weight, 100 yards.
Yep.
Be able to drag
your body weight,
50 yards.
I'd say 50 yards.
50 yards is pretty comparable. Be able to do at least one pull-up at any point in your life, preferably more.
And deadlift. Minimum one. Ideally 1.5 to 2.
Yeah. I think if you got a human that could do that from strictly a strength perspective, that's a pretty well-rounded individual at any point in life.
Yeah.
You know, regardless.
You're going to be set up well
situation.
to be able to take on most things.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're generally physically pretty prepared for any strength scenario that you're going to come across, which is awesome.
Yeah. You know, you could sit there and create some like squat standards, some overhead pressing standards,
sure,
and go that way down the rabbit hole.
But for sure.
If you've got the strength necessary to deadlift the appropriate weight, the range of motion to go through the squat, you should also be able to squat an appropriate weight.
I think that's the beauty of many of those movements, and what we would, I guess, in our field consider a functional movement is that it would transfer to something else.
Yeah,
you know, it like the squat, the strength built from the resistance of the deadlift will also build the squat.
Yeah.
Range of motion in the squat will affect the deadlift, and same thing with the push up and the pull up, like we talked about earlier. Is that's why I think like what makes a good test is that it doesn't just test one thing.
Yeah.
You know, it tests many things within that. And obviously you're looking at a specific thing, but we chose it as a test because it has a broad spectrum that it pulls from, you know, which is why we can have 5 or so kind of standards and cover such a wide breadth of scenarios.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up with some feats of strength that you have personally witnessed.
Oh man,
that you're like, I'm like, that have stood out as being like memorable.
I would say one of the things, and this is when I used to love watching World's Strongest Man as a kid. It was just like in my mind, just like blew my mind. And watching the first time I saw, and this was in person, I got to see some of this stuff when I lived in Colorado. I got to see Brian Shaw lift it was like a over 300-pound stone and put it up on a platform that was damn near as tall as I was. and then I got to go over and feel that stone, and it was just like unbelievable. And it was
like, oh my God.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it was, I mean, and he's a mountain of a man, obviously. So it's, you know, relative, but I think there's something to the sport of strongman that it kind of is that preparation of push, pull, drag, you know, end of day scenario. You're ready. You know, you want one of those Vikings on your side for sure. And I think that was the most impressive thing, to see that just raw power of there's no handles, there's nothing fancy on it. You know, it's like, get this round, heavy object up on this impossibly tall thing with, you know, no assistance whatsoever. Yeah. And it was just like, wow, that was when I knew, I was like, that's raw strength. And that was a really cool expression of it.
We went to the, I think it was the 2009 or 10 Arnold. And my buddy and I were going to go see the Pro Strongman event that was on like the main stage in the not the night show, whatever whatever the
I know what you're talking about.
Where all the vendors are.
Vendor village.
Yeah, and so we got there like 30 minutes early and actually ended up getting like these VIP seats. It was awesome.
Oh, damn.
And so we're like, okay, we'll just go back here and kind of watch them warm up. And I remember, I can't remember who it was, but someone had 135 and they did like 10 deadlifts, 10 bent rows, 10 hang cleans, 10 push press, and then put 225 on and did the same thing. And like as their warm up.
Whoa.
I was like,
that's
holy
amazing.
crap. Like it basically made it look like it was a barbell.
Wow.
Just 10, 225,
that's so crazy.
10 deadlifts, 10 bent rows, 10 cleans, and 10 overhead press.
That's incredible.
Just like, might as well have been an empty barbell. It's like,
that's insane. I can't even fathom that level of strength. Like it just blows my mind. Like, what do you even do with that? You just watch in awe. You're like, man, that's impressive.
Yeah, super impressive. There's another good, like two that come to mind was we had a dude bench 900 pounds at in his shirt, but at a meet we did.
Yeah.
And I was one of the spotters. And I just remember being like, holy crap, there is not any bar left on this collar. Like there's no collar left.
No. Yeah.
There was plates and then, there's plates, then the collar.
Yeah. And there's
no more bar.
No more bar.
And just being like, with 45s, or whatever, 50 kilos, whatever the hell it was, but like, or 25 kilos, whatever the hell it was, just being like, holy crap, this is scary to spot this because there's nothing to, like, we're all
what
just
do you,
like,
yeah, I was going to say, what do you grab?
Just had our hands underneath the plates and
Good
just,
God.
he
and just hoped.
He touched and pressed 900, just being like, I mean, the fact that someone can put 900 pounds in their arms
Is
and not just collapse
snap
them, snap them is
Yeah.
just crazy. There was another one that sticks out was at LSU. Have you ever heard of inch dumbbell?
Yes.
It's like a 1.5
Yep.
pound, 108 or 1.5 inch, like 180 pound solid dumbbell.
Yeah.
And we had this thing that just sat, this little grip section that just sat there, and like no one ever picked it up. Every other Friday, like the strength coach would like go chalk up and like slap each other, like, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And we'd all try to pick it up, but like none of us could ever pick the dang thing up.
Yeah.
And then just one day after doing like running, everyone came in and I can't remember the dude's name, but he was a sophomore at the time, a D tackle, and someone being like, whatever his name was, hey, you think you can pick that up? He like just bent, like no prep, no chalk, bends down, picks it up, kind of looks at his hand, puts it back down, and goes, oh, that's heavy.
Some people are just, it's just freaks, man.
There's like every strength coach in there couldn't budge it off the ground.
But this guy just picks it up.
He just like, no chalk, picked it up,
Yeah.
kind of looked at it like that, and just put it back down. I was like, that's pretty heavy.
That's insane. And that the LSU made me think of Adrian Peterson. And he played high school ball by where my cousins live in Texas.
Ah, okay.
And so I knew of him when he was like in high school. He's like a blue chip. And then, so I kind of followed his career. And then I can't remember if it was when he was at Oklahoma or whenever he just started his pro career, but there was a video, and I guess this is more power, but I think it will still filter into what we're looking for. And he did I think it was like a 42-inch box jump, something ridiculous with like 80-pound dumbbells in each hand. It was something that I was just like, I couldn't do either. Like one, I couldn't like hold an 80-pound dumbbell and do anything else.
Yeah,
Two, I couldn't jump that high without an 80-pound dumbbell. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it really put in perspective the elitism of like that type of player and the power, like the guy that you heard pick up the dumbbell. Like I couldn't imagine lining up again on the other side of a human like that.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, going to LSU is a very big like eye opener of like, this is why you're not in the NFL.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
Because I went right out of college. So like I graduated college and then went and coached LSU.
Yeah.
And was like, oh,
all right.
Okay. There was a dude named Herman Johnson who was like 6'6" on the first day I was there, he weighed in at 407.
Holy. Like what?
He literally sounded like the Jolly Green Giant. And like you'd hear him go boom, 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 walking. And then like the first day of running drills, they were like, coaches on the corners. And this was not explained to anyone or any of the new people on staff how this worked at all. He said, coaches on the corners. And they're like, you don't let anyone go inside of you. You're like, okay. Like, so it's like just 2-lap warm up.
I got you.
Around the corners.
Around the football field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's your job to stand in on the corner and make sure they go on the outside of you.
Ah, okay.
So cutting the corners.
Yeah.
What they don't tell you is every single dude is going to shoulder check you, and try and knock you off the corner.
That's awesome.
So like I just standing there, not prepared at all, and then someone just doom. We're like, what the crap? And so I was like, I know, because like 22 or whatever. And
yeah.
I was like, all right,
like, let's go.
I was psyched up, like, and I giving it back to him, and then like he literally came up and put his hand on my chest and just like threw me 10 yards.
Yeah, well, you can't even.
Well, and I was like, well, fuck it, I'm
like,
not.
All right, cool, I'm out.
I was like, I'm out. Yo, take the corner. I don't care.
Have at it. This is your corner, buddy. Yeah,
it's like I'm not.
No,
doing
you
that.
could eat me. Yeah,
That's
awesome.
I remember just being like, I was like, he put his hand on my chest. I was like, well, that's my entire chest. And then
it's done. It's done. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, he threw
That's
me.
awesome.
So that was a fun feat of strength performed on me.
Yeah,
I truly experienced it.
I can say I've experienced. I wouldn't say something that similar, but a buddy I played high school football with ended up playing center for Alabama. And he was a D tackle at the time, and I was an offensive lineman.
Dude, our things just continue.
It's similar. Yeah, way too. So you started telling that story. I was like, oh shoot, I do have something very similar.
I have a buddy I played with that played center at Alabama.
No joke, dude.
Probably the dude who played.
I was
right
gonna
after
say
him.
chances are pretty good. It's right after JB. But yeah, he was. I mean, he was a tank. He was like 6'6", 300 pounds in high school, and I had to line up against him all the time. And my coach would get so pissed. He was like, "Attack him! You got to attack him." I'm like, "If I attack him, he is going to eat me." And and I'm a fairly large human being at that point. And he came across and he took his left arm and did like a swat and swim, and he didn't even have to swim. I came at him just boom, and I literally just fell over. And I was 260 pounds at the time. I was super strong, and it literally just fell over. Like I was a empty garbage can. And at that point I was like, all right, cool, man.
Yeah.
It's like I made it.
It's that there was a dude at LSU or at Delta State before I got there, and he ended up playing for a decent amount of time in the league as a nose guard for the Jaguars and for the Texans. His name is Milkman, but I can't think what his real name. What his real name is. It had a name like Milkman. But I remember hearing stories of just like him being just a terror to the scout team O-line, because all the guys who were seniors my freshman year were freshmen when he was a senior.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So they were telling these stories. They're just like, there's nothing worse than your coach like yelling at you and getting onto you to like give it 100%. And then you line up against this guy who could kill you.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you go 100%, I will kill you.
Yes.
And you're like,
who do you disappoint? Who do you disappoint? What do you value more? Do you value your life or getting yelled at by the coach?
And I remember there was a story that the center at the time, coach was like, hey, but you gotta get after him now. You gotta give him a good look. Yep. And he just picked him up, ran him 10 yards back, dropped him on the ground, and then broke his face mask off.
Like, what do you do?
He just got up like when the coach was like,
you told me to do this. You did this.
Flash in front of my eyes.
Like, come on. What do you want me to do here? Help me out here. You see this.
I just remember like that's
ruthless.
Amazing story.
Just ruthless. So. Yeah. It's just like, what do you do? Like, all right, this is a man child here is somehow my age. Yeah. Like, no. Like, no. It's insane.
Yeah, and that's a good way of showing like the standards we're setting for strength are not superhuman.
No, by no means.
I've seen superhuman.
I've seen
strength.
Superhuman. Yeah, 100%. This is not it. This is basic human. Yeah, this is basic human. Let's raise our bar here. Yeah.
This is, you don't have to break face masks with your bare hands.
No.
You don't have to bench at 900 pounds.
Yeah, my dad had a roommate in college. He played football at Temple. That could bend a quarter in half with his fingers.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, that's superhuman stuff. Like picking up the dumbbell, ripping the face back, bending a quarter in half with your fingers. That stuff, I'm not going to.
That's not the standard.
I don't expect that standard from you. No.
There are some people who are born that have bodies.
Yes.
Of a different gene.
100%. Yes.
There's almost a different species.
Something happened somewhere. It's a Spider-Man thing. It's totally different human beings. If you haven't run into one, it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not what we're saying. I'm not saying that. It's just basic human ability. We gotta level it up a little bit. Yeah. Expect more from yourself. Boom. You can do more. Do it. Hold yourself to a higher standard.
Love it. That's a great way to end it.
Done.
All right, brother.
Good stuff.
MBS Fitness Radio out.
Thank you for listening to NBS Fitness Radio. If you enjoyed the podcast, be sure to share it with your friends, follow us on social media, and check out our website at www.nbsfitness.net. Hit the subscribe button and tune in next time for more NBS Fitness Radio.